Thank you for being with us tonight. I hope you're all well. My name is Holly Block, Assistant Director for Recruitment at CSI, and I'd like to introduce our co-host, and this is Professor Adrian Paez, who is Director of the Medical Laboratory Science Program, which is part of the Department of Biology. And we also have the recruitment team as well. Everyone is an alum of the college, and they are recruiter admissions advisors. So we have Andrey, Parkhomenko, Tamara Mosley, Chevy Abraham, and Joyce Adorno. You can type your questions in throughout the presentation, and then we'll open up the floor to verbal questions after the presentation. And we have a video also, about a 3-minute video to show you of the biology facilities. So let's get started. I'm going to deliver a brief introduction, an overview of the college, and then we'll turn it over to the professor for her presentation. So we'd like to talk about the college, some factoids that you might not already know. CSI is actually a unique college in the City University system of New York. For one thing, we're Staten Island's only public college, and we're also unique in CUNY because we're the only one that offers an associate through the doctorate degree. We're only one of 3 colleges in CUNY that has the power to actually award a doctorate. The 3 that we currently have is a doctorate of nurse practice, the doctorate in physical therapy, and a new degree, which is the doctorate of education, community-based leadership. Currently, we have about 13,000 students enrolled, and that includes about 1,000 graduate students. And we're part of the largest urban university system in the entire country. And CUNY encompasses 25 colleges, and we're one of the 11 senior colleges. There's also 9 community colleges. Plus, we have a law school, a medical school, school of journalism, school of urban studies, and a school of professional studies. And currently, there's about 275,000 degree-seeking students that are enrolled. So we also have the largest single campus in the 5 boroughs, public or private. It's 204 acres, about a mile from end to end. We are considered a research powerhouse at CSI. We have over 70 research labs. 2 of the biggest areas of research we cover are cancer and autism. We are also a diverse campus. We have representatives from over 80 different countries on our campus. We have a lot of opportunities to fit in. We have over 50 student clubs, and we recommend that you join a club associated with your major first and foremost. That's the easiest way to make friends, network within your major, and maybe come across some opportunities for internships and jobs. If you don't see the club you like, we recommend that you form your own. That's encouraged. We have more of a SUNY feel than a CUNY feel because our layout, and we have such a nice campus feel because we have on-campus living. It's very much more like a SUNY than a CUNY feel. We have a great study abroad program. As of now, it's still on hiatus because of the pandemic, but we hope to be up and running again soon. We have the most affiliate countries overseas that we deal with, and also the most college programs that we liaison with. And CUNY recognizes our program as one of the best, if not the best. A little bit about affordability. Currently, tuition for New York State residents is $7,000, just under $7,000. With your activity fee, it's a little bit over that. If you compare it to our competitors, you could see that CUNY tuition is a fraction of the others. And if you add in room and board, which is about an additional $15,000 out of pocket, it comes to about $22,000 a year. It's still, that's the red bar, by the way. That's with tuition and housing. You can see that it's a fraction of the others. For the prospective students that are in the room, to complete the application is pretty easy. It only takes about 25 minutes, no paper involved. It's all online, and it's $65 for 6 choices. If you're still trying to submit SAT scores and other documents, if you're an incoming freshman, we will have an upload feature where you can upload those documents directly to us. And that should be available any day now. If you want to submit an essay or a recommendation, please do. We read everything, and it only gives you an edge for your admission. Like I mentioned before, we have plenty of things to do on campus. Last year, we held about 1,200 events. Most of them were free to students, and they were open to the public. So there's always something to do on our campus. Plus, if you're living on campus, they have a whole different set of activities for the students who live in Dolphin Cove. So currently the college offers 47 undergraduate majors, 17 master's programs, and like I mentioned before, 3 doctoral degrees. And we have a distinguished faculty at CSI. Many of them teach at the CUNY Graduate Center. So if you notice, if your professor's teaching at the Graduate Center, that means that they are considered renowned in their field. The Graduate Center is nationally ranked. It's a great benchmark for the professors who teach there. They are considered the utmost experts in their industry. A little bit about our campus. We have many beautiful buildings on campus. Upper left is our library. Then we have in the upper right the Sports and Recreation Center. Bottom right is the campus center, and bottom left is the Center for the Arts. We do have a virtual tour available if you want to see more of the campus. We have 10 destinations, and you can link to csi.cuny.edu/vtour. We'll send you the link in the chat box. This is the overhead view of our campus. Like I mentioned, it looks like its own little city, and most students can walk it from end to end. We do have 2 buses that circle all day long that pick you up around the perimeter, but it takes about 10 to 15 minutes to walk from one end to the other. It's about a mile. And this past summer, we moved from Division III to Division II, very big deal. We are part of the East Coast Conference, so if anyone is looking to compete in the group that joined us tonight, if you compete at your high school or you competed in sports as part of your high school, please let us know and we will put you in touch with a coach. We have honors programs at CSI, so Macaulay Honors College, 8 colleges in CUNY offer that program. That's full tuition scholarship. We also have Verrazano and the Teacher Education Honors Academy for students who want to become highly trained math and science teachers in the DOE. The Verrazano School is a unique honors program to CSI alone, and all 3 of these programs have benefits, and most of them being scholarships based on merit, study abroad, and research stipends. They each have their own lounge, their own advisors. You all bypass the regular registration process, which can be kind of stressful. And also having that atmosphere where everybody hangs out in the lounge, it becomes a very nurturing atmosphere. Everybody supports each other, you make friends, and that's how everyone becomes close. We also have opportunity programs. We also have the SEEK and the ASAP program. So these programs are for motivated students who need a little extra help. They have an array of services, including gap tuition. And we recommend, if you're interested in either program, that you reach out directly to the respective programs via their web pages. So if anybody needs any extra information about the honors or the opportunity programs, you can type it in the chat box and we'll give you the info. So that is it for my presentation. I'm going to stop my share and I'm going to turn it over to Professor Paez. And whenever you're ready.
Good evening, everybody. So I want to welcome you all to the Medical Laboratory Science Info Session. I'd also like to thank Holly Block and her recruitment and admissions team for inviting me to participate in these fantastic virtual sessions. I'm finding them very informative. We usually do this in an in-person format, but being able to do this virtual is an excellent way to get all of our programs across to you, and they've been working out very well. So I want to thank Holly and the team for inviting me to do this. So what is medical laboratory science? So as you can see, this first slide here shows that not all heroes wear capes. Some actually wear lab coats. So during the COVID-19 pandemic, the world has basically turned its eye toward the medical laboratory science profession, as well as the scientists that perform PCR and the antibody testing for it. Many of our CSI graduates are conducting COVID-19 testing throughout the city area as we speak. But what exactly is laboratory science? What exactly is a lab science professional? Some of you may also know the field as medical technology or med tech. That's an old term that we used to use in the field. When I became certified, I'm a certified med tech. Now we refer to it as medical laboratory science. People seem to understand what we do better by the term medical laboratory science. But what exactly do we do? We work behind the scenes, so many people don't often know what we do. Laboratory science professionals in healthcare play a very vital role in the diagnosis, treatment, management, and prevention of disease. These professionals act as healthcare detectives. We're like detectives behind the scenes. We use state-of-the-art biomedical instrumentation as well as different manual techniques to provide lab results to clinicians. They estimate that about 70% of all medical decisions are based on laboratory results that are generated by laboratory professionals. So what are the major disciplines of clinical laboratory science or medical laboratory science? Blood bank is one of them. So blood bank is a center where blood from blood donation, I'm sure many of you have donated blood or have received blood by transfusion. The blood is stored and preserved for later use in this particular lab. We perform blood typing, we perform antibody testing in order to screen the blood to make sure that it's very safe and is the safest possible blood to release to a patient for transfusion. The next laboratory is hematology or coagulation. The hematology lab provides accurate and reliable results via automated manual methods, sometimes automated methods for the diagnosis, treatment, and prognosis of various blood disorders. So some of those blood disorders include anemias, leukemias, disorders of hemostasis and thrombosis. Hemostasis is the process of stopping bleeding. Thrombosis is clotting. So we monitor all of that in the hematology lab. In the chemistry lab, we offer a very, very wide variety of testing in the chemistry lab to aid in patient diagnosis, treatment, and care. The services cover a multitude of pathophysiologies that are related to protein disorders, carbohydrate metabolism, like cholesterol and your lipids. You know, there's good cholesterol, bad cholesterol. We monitor your kidney function, clinical endocrinology, which are your hormones, electrolytes, enzymes for cardiac, liver, and bone function, therapeutic drug monitoring, toxicology, and drugs for abuse. Or only to name a few, there are many, many tests that are performed in the chemistry lab. I'm sure you've all heard of urinalysis. Urinalysis is a lab where we use this lab to detect cells or substances that are in the urine to help screen for and diagnose urinary tract infection or any type of kidney disease. Immunology or serology, immunology and serology lab. Immunology is the study of the body's immune system. So, and all of its functions and disorders that go along with it. Serology is the study of the actual blood serum. That's that clear portion of the blood after you spin it down. So immunology and serology laboratories focus on basically identifying antibodies that the patient's body has produced. And then lastly, microbiology, which is my specialty and where I worked for many years. The main function of the microbiology lab is to assist in the diagnosis of infectious disease. And I know you've all heard of COVID-19. That's why we're doing this virtual session right now. We diagnose strep throat, gonorrhea, tuberculosis. So those are just to name a few of the many different types of testing that we perform in these laboratories. Okay, so what I'm outlining here is the coursework that you would take during the 4 to 5 years. We try to do it in 4 years, but it depends on what type of basic courses you need, if you need remediation courses or if you need biology courses before you take general bio. But in general, it's a 4-year program. It's 128 credits. The coursework for this program, I'm not going to lie, it is rigorous. It's pretty stringent. It's comparable to pre-major coursework. It's very heavy, as you can see, in biology and in chemistry. General Bio 1, General Bio 2, Microbiology, Biometrics, General Chemistry 1 and 2, Organic Chemistry, Analytical Chemistry. So that's just the sciences in addition to all the gen ed courses that you're going to need for graduation. The humanities, English, the ethics, the social science, history, and so on. So I basically look at the program and I explain it to the students as a 3-phase program. So phase 1, you're doing your pre-major coursework. Okay, all of your pre-major coursework is in phase 1. Phase 2 is your major coursework. That's why I put it in 3 different blocks. So if you look on the right, those are the major courses that you would take. And I explain to you what the tests are that we perform in each laboratory so you have a good background in what you would be taking in these courses. And then the third phase is the clinical training. This is your internship. So you think of it as when a medical resident goes to their residency at the hospital, that's what it is. It's your internship. It's your residency for clinical laboratory training. It lasts approximately 6 months, 28 weeks. We recently made some changes to our clinical rotations. Instead of 6 months straight, you guys are going to do 2 semesters. In your senior year, you would do 2 semesters, 14 weeks each of clinical training at the hospital. What's excellent about this degree, while the degree work is very demanding, it takes a lot of study time, it takes a lot of discipline, and the program itself is competitive, it's extremely rewarding in the end. I'll give the statistics in the end, job outlook, salary, but the reward in the end makes it worthwhile. In addition, at the end of your program, you're eligible for MLS ASCP, which is the national certification exam, and you're also eligible for New York State Clinical Laboratory Science licensure. So you will be a licensed clinical laboratory scientist with the bachelor's degree upon graduation. This next slide is showing you the clinical training hospitals that we use. We have 13 clinical sites, clinical affiliates right now. Some are private labs, but most of them are major hospital sites, as you can see. In Manhattan, we have Memorial Sloan Kettering, Lenox Hill Hospital, Harlem Hospital. In Queens, we use Elmhurst. As you guys know, they described Elmhurst as the epicenter of the COVID-19 pandemic here in New York. We have students that are training there right now as we speak. Brooklyn, we have NYU Lutheran, New York Community Hospital, Interfaith, and Empire City Laboratories. In Staten Island, we use Staten Island University Medical Center. We also, in addition to the 5 boroughs, in the Bronx, we have Montefiore Medical Center. As you can see, there's a real premier hospital training sites. And in addition to the 5 boroughs, we also can send the student to Hackensack or Long Island. And we usually place students based on their geography. Some students live in the Bronx, some students live in New Jersey. So we work with the students on where to place them for training. Okay, so these are our 2019 graduates. So after passing your board exam, you're going to be working, as I said, as a licensed medical laboratory scientist. So that's the beauty of the profession. So while many of us will pursue advanced studies, master's degree, doctoral degrees. Some people go on for MBAs, depending on what field you want to go into or how you want to advance in the clinical laboratory science field. Bachelor's degree is really all you need to work as a bench tech, to work as a medical laboratory scientist. So upon graduation, you pass your national certification exam, you become New York State licensed, and you can work. And the beauty is that you can work and go to graduate school at the same time. So this is showing you our 2019 graduates. Jersey is there on the bottom. This was a recent picture he sent to me. He's working at Montefiore, all geared up in his PPE, personal protective equipment. Montefiore has offered him a job before he even graduated. These students are offered positions before they even graduate, which is what this slide is showing you. The 3-year placement rate, the job placement rate is 98%. For the graduates between 2015 and 2018. Our 2019 graduates are basically all employed. There's 100% employment, and that's for those that sought employment. Some students go on to graduate school or they extend their education, but those that graduated and want to get into the field, there's been 100% job placement for all of them. And those are some of the hospitals that have hired our students. And as you can see, all premier hospitals throughout the city area. So at this point, you're thinking, wow, this sounds like it might be a pretty good career opportunity for me. Now the question is, will I get a job? So yes, that answers, you will get a job. There was a recent article published, as a matter of fact, I printed it out here. There was the professor and chair of the clinical laboratory science department at Texas University, and he gave the statistics. He said that there are about 49 new 100 graduates every year between technicians and technologists. That's the 2-year degree and the 4-year degree. This is the 4-year degree. And there were only 9,100 jobs. So only 4,900 graduates to fill the 9,100 jobs. That results in a 46% vacancy rate. So the job opportunities are out there, and you will definitely find employment. It's an excellent field to get into. So if you are happy working as a bench tech, which I was for many years, I worked as a microbiology lab tech for 7 years before I moved into clinical laboratory education. You can work with a bachelor's degree as a bench tech. You could move into a lab supervisory position. You could become the lab manager, the lab director, a hospital administrator. Basically, as you move up the career ladder, these positions generally require a more advanced degree, like for a laboratory manager, lab director, hospital administrator, a master's in public health, a master's in business administration, perhaps. Other interesting careers you can branch off into that you would require a degree in medical laboratory science would be instrumentation technician. We use all those big machines and automated equipment to run many of our tests. So many of our graduates go in work for these major corporations, Abbott, Bayer, Becton Dickinson, and they actually will run the machines. They train lab techs on how to use the machines. If you're into computers, you can also branch into laboratory information system. We have a special laboratory information system where we enter all of our laboratory results and the physician gets all of the results through that LIS. You can branch off into that. You can go into the cosmetic industry, quality control, medical product sales, forensic medicine. And then you can use later on in your career, if you want to pursue graduate school, medical, or dental school, it's also a very, very good stepping stone for that. So I put this little meme in. It's a joke because for many years, I've been in this field for over 25 years, and still some of my family members will ask, what exactly is it that you do? Do you draw blood? Are you in the lab? Do you diagnose? Do you see patients? So I always find this funny. What I do, what my coworkers think I do, what my friends think I do, what my boss thinks I do, what I imagine myself doing, and what my grandma thinks I do. Like I said, my grandma still thinks that I'm working with animals. It's like I said, it's a very behind the scenes field, but it's extremely, extremely rewarding. The salary in the field. So you're thinking, okay, this is a great opportunity for me. I can handle the sciences. I like the sciences. I like all the laboratories that I can possibly work in. I like the idea of graduating and going right to work. What type of salary am I going to make? The salary has improved significantly over the past decade or so. They've increased. The national average salary is about $53,000. In the New York area, the average salary is about $75,000. So it depends on where you work, but that's a pretty decent salary to come out with a college degree, a bachelor's degree, and starting a career, or starting a job. So I just wanted to let you know what the employment opportunities were and what the salary was like. So that gives you a good overview of what lab science is, what type of courses you have to take, what the job opportunities are, and what the salary is. So I'll hand it back to Holly before we go through our question and answer session. So thank you all for joining.
Thank you. And we're going to show a brief video. Andrey Parkhomenko is a cinema studies major and graduate student, and he's a videographer. So he put together this video for biology. Thank you, Andrey. We're going to open up the floor to questions. We have excellent facilities. The little hairless rodents that you saw were naked mole rats, the African naked mole rats. We are one of 3 colleges in the entire country that are allowed to breed these animals. They live about 30 years. They don't get cancer. And one of our professors, Dan McCloskey, has performed some premier research, and he was honored by President Obama a couple of years ago with an award for his research on these animals. We're going to open up the floor to questions. If you'd like to raise your hand, we'll unmute you. If you'd like to ask them verbally, we'll also review what's in the chat box and we can go over them there too.
I have a question. How many students can get into the program?
That's an excellent question. It's very competitive. There's 16 students allowed every year. We begin every fall, and the reason why we are limited on the number of students admitted is because it has to do with our clinical rotation site. We have to make sure that we have enough clinical sites to accommodate our student rotations.
Thank you. That's good to know.
Is there a special criteria for the program?
Okay, the criteria is 3.0 overall GPA. Students have to have at least a C in the biology courses that are being used as the prerequisites for the program application. Students generally, since we begin every fall, the application will be due February 15th, the spring semester prior to entry. You would have to complete all of those courses or in the last semester of those courses that are on that degree map. 2 letters of recommendation from your college professors and a short narrative stating why you're interested in the field of laboratory medicine.
Thank you.
My question is, Professor, since you have 16 incoming students each year, what is your graduating class number?
That's a good question, Shebi. We've recently moved to a cohort type of class, this cohort type system where we start all the students at the same point in the fall. Previous students have come in on like a rolling basis type of mission. So every year it's varied. But on average, we have anywhere students graduating in January, in June, and then in August. So last year we had about 15 students that graduated. The year before we had 20 students that graduated. This year, unfortunately, due to COVID, a lot of our students' rotations were did. So this year far, we have about 6 students graduating so far in 2020. So it varies, but from going forward, hopefully we maintain that 16 student per year graduation rate. Over the past 3 years, our graduation rate has been 100%, regardless of the numbers that have graduated.
Thank you, Professor. Also, where do the students go on after they graduate? Do most of them go right into working, or do they opt to go to med school or schools of dentistry or some other professional school in the health sciences?
I'd say right now about 95% of our graduates go right to work. Even when I graduated, I remember it was July 23rd. I had the weekend off. July 26th, I was in the lab working. Same thing goes for our graduates. I used Yersi as the most recent example. He was offered a job. Amina was offered a job before she graduated. They wait until the student's degree is confirmed. They're right in the lab working. So that basically they go into the hospital setting. That's generally what they do. If they decide to pursue advanced studies in the healthcare profession, they use that later on after they've worked in the field for a few years. Then some students will generally move into dental school or medical school or into physician's assistant. But for the most part, the students that enter the field of lab science generally stay in the field of lab science, and then they just move within that career, like lab supervisor, lab manager, and so on.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any questions from the floor?
I have a question. Due to the current situation,
Sure.
Is it possible that the program might be expanded in terms of a number of students admitted per year?
I would love to expand the program. Dean Cavagnero would love to expand the program. Our only limiting factor right now, as I said, are the number of clinical sites. So if we can get all the hospitals in the city area to get on board and train our hospitals, we could expand the program easily. Unfortunately, right now, it's very difficult for them with this pandemic to keep up on the workload and train our students. But that's an excellent question, Andrey. That's our goal for the future, to expand the program, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a student who messaged me saying that they were a little confused on how to get into the program per se. Can you explain that process again?
Well, if they follow that course, that degree map, those are the courses that the students have to take prior to the field. So it's broken down year by year. The first 2 years have the list of courses that they have to take. When they're finishing up that coursework, they would apply. There's an application. You can get it through our website. Basically, you have to complete those 2 years of prerequisite courses in order to be eligible to apply. Does that help answer the question?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm an incoming freshman at CSI, and I just wanted to ask, you said how there's only like 16 kids that can get in the program, right? So what happens if you reach a limit? Like, what do the other kids that don't get in the program have to do?
they'll have to choose plan B. Usually a biology. The students that generally go into laboratory science are very science oriented. And they're usually biology majors before they apply to the medical laboratory science field. So generally these students stay in the health field and they choose another type of health career. Sometimes they'll wait another semester and they'll work on a minor in biology and then they'll wait for the following year to reapply. But in general, if the student wants to graduate on time, the student will generally graduate with a biology degree.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Professor, how many students do you get applying to the program each year?
Last year, I would say we had about 15 that applied. Like I said, we are behind the scenes. We are the hidden gem at the College of Staten Island. Not many people are aware of what our major is or what we do. But now that we're in this pandemic, our field has been thrust into the public eye, and it's becoming very well known what the field is. So I hope the applications are up because, like I said, we have a very big shortage in the field. We need good clinical laboratory scientists, but on average, we've had about 15 applicants or so every year.
Terrific. I wanted to note that the professor mentioned that you need a 3.00 to apply as the criteria for eligibility. Please note that a lot of our programs require a higher GPA, usually a 3.3 or higher. So a 3.00 is doable, especially if you're a good student. That's probably about an 88 to a 90 GPA. And if you're a good student, a 3.00 is attainable. And also, in order to stay in the biology program, you have to hold a 2.50 GPA. Again, that's like a C+. So if you're a good student, that's attainable as well.
Professor, on average, what's the GPA of the students who apply to the program?
Oh, that's a great question. Usually it's higher than 0.0. I would say right now, out of all my students, there are about 50-something students right now through the different years. I would say it's about 3.4.
Now, let's say if a student has to retake a class to maintain that 3.0 or above GPA, does that hinder their eligibility for the program?
It could. It's all based on the application pool. Since we have 16 positions, if there are more students applying than positions available, we look at GPA, we look at academic history. So it's possible. And another thing that I should also mention, which you brought up a great point, is you have to maintain certain academic progress to stay within the program. You have to maintain that 3.0 overall major, and you have to maintain the 3.0 in your major coursework. You have to pass all lab science courses with at least a C or better. So if a student did poorly in one course and got a D or an F, they would be eligible to repeat that class only one more time. If they didn't get a C or better the second time, then they would be dismissed from the program.
Thank you.
So it is very important to maintain your grades, yes.
Thank you. I do want to note that a lot of people at the college don't know about our medical laboratory science program. It's like a best kept secret. And it is a licensing program, so you will graduate with your license. Our program is also accredited, so that's very important as well.
Oh, I have a question. Once I graduate with my degree, before I could start working, do I have to have the license in hand as well?
Yes, you do. In New York State, you must be New York State licensed. So in order to get that New York State licensure, there's the ASCP MLS exam. It's our board exam. Just like the doctor or nurse takes their board exams, we as laboratory scientists take a board exam. It's administered by the ASCP, American Society for Clinical Pathology. So your designation would be MLS ASCP. Once you pass that exam, you're automatically given New York State licensure because New York State recognizes that as the exam for New York State licensure. But it's a very, very difficult exam. It's a lot of intense prep. But yes, you pass that exam, you get your New State licensure, and you're good to work right away.
Does this exam have like a series of steps like the medical boards or the pharmacy boards?
It's one test, one time, 200 questions, 5 different areas, those major areas that I went through. Those are the major areas. On the ASCP.org website, they give you the board of content. It'll give you the breakdown of all of the content that's on the exam. And one of our courses, if you noticed on our degree map at the end in the last semester, it's MLS 395. It's called ASCP Registry Review. That course is geared specifically to help the students prep to pass that board exam. That's the very last course that they'll take. And it's geared specifically to help them pass that board exam.
Now, if I'm licensed in New York, does that transfer over to other states?
Sometimes it does, but unfortunately not so often. Like California is very strict. They have their own state licensure laws. Florida, there are about 15 states right now that are licensed. So you'd have to check, the student or the graduate would have to check with that particular state to see if they would give reciprocity or if they would require the student to take an entirely new exam. But the AACP, that national certification, is recognized nationwide and even internationally. So if you pass that AACP, that's a good step.
So if I pass it and I get my degree in one hand and a license in the other, I could go to Europe and practice, right?
Mm-hmm. It's recognized internationally. They even have an AACP International, where international students taking medical laboratory science in other countries take this AACP International test, and it's able to transfer back to here, to this country.
Very good.
Nice.
I also wanted to note that we have 128 credits required to complete the degree. And just so everyone is aware, the general number of credits to earn the degree is mostly 120 for the majority of our majors. So with the extra 8 credits, Professor, are they encouraged to accelerate their degree by taking courses over the summer and winter sessions? How do they graduate in 4 years if we have an extra 8 credits?
Well, that's what I was saying before with the degree map. That's 4 years, assuming the students come in and are able to take Math 123, English 111, Bio 170 without taking courses prior to that. So if the student comes in as a freshman and they're able to enroll in those courses and they stay on that degree map, then they will graduate easily without ever having to take a summer or winter session. If the student has to take a prerequisite course in order to get to that point at year 1, semester 1, then many of my students do take summer courses and winter session courses, yes.
Great, thanks for clarifying that.
You're welcome. And the reason why we're 128 credit and not 120 is because we're a STEM program and there's more science courses that are required for this particular degree. Like you said, it's a licensed program, and that's why we were able to do it in 128 credits rather than 120.
Terrific, thank you. We're going to wrap. Does anybody have any last questions? So I just want to make sure that we've covered every question and we've answered them. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'd like to thank Professor Paez for presenting tonight and everyone for joining us. We loved having you. Hope everyone stays well. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you all. Have a good night. Be well.